it's wonderful to have you here at this interesting time. And we all been reading your book, The Verdict, Decoding India's Elections, a book with N.Ram, Sapariwala, and I'm told that Radhika Roy has also made quite a few inputs in this. This is a lot of work. You know, when we met, I couldn't believe how long did this take you?
Well, I guess it's an embodiment of about 20 years work, but the final thrust to meet the deadline was about a year of non-stop work on this, yeah.
And you did all the other things you're doing?
Yeah, so this would go on till 3 in the morning and then get up and do the day job.
And I'm told the book is doing exceedingly well. It came out just in time.
I think it's timing more than anything else.
Much more than that. So if you could, if Srinivasan Ramani, our associate editor, and I could raise some questions.
Sure.
And have you in conversation on some of these interesting findings. The first question I'd like to ask you, Prannoy, is now you and your team have combined academic rigor with journalistic functions and skills. The journalistic functions being bearing witness, of course analysis, academics also do it, but your own analysis as journalists, your teams, and investigation. So what is the value added by journalism to what psephologists do? So you're an economist, you're a psephologist, but also a journalist.
Right.
So what does it bring to the table?
I think that is a very important question, and we tend to mix up the two. I do feel there's a quantitative difference. One is quantitative and one is qualitative, and we should try never to bridge. So when I'm, for example, doing opinion polls, that's quantitative, and when we're doing journalism, that's qualitative, and we tend to mix it up, which one should not do. Many journalists tend to try and forecast the election, which is not really the job of a journalist, because especially in our first past the post system with a divided opposition, a small change in votes means a huge change in seats. Like a 3% change in votes means 100 seats changing hands. That's winning or losing an election. So for a journalist, it's very difficult to have a gut feel for 3%. So journalism, I think, is a more exciting thing to do. It's qualitative in the sense it tells the story of the election. It tells the issues. You feel the pain, the hardship of farmers, like we've been in UP, which no opinion poll can ever tell you. You see the farmers there, how different it is from, say, 5 years ago, and how they're suffering. And you can't put that in numbers. So the job of a journalist is really to tell the story of an election and to avoid forecasting. But we all journalists also get tempted, so-and-so is ahead. Very difficult. It's tough enough for pollsters, and then pollsters try to be qualitative. What are your main issues? But you know, people don't just articulate my top 5 main issues are this. You've got to talk to them, you've got to understand it, and it takes time as a journalist. So pollsters should not get qualitative, and journalists should not get quantitative. It's a very simplified distinction.
Thank you. Journalists tend to hedge their bets.
Right.
And one of the findings in your book is that most of the time polls get it right, and maybe journalists to that extent, they rely on polls, but they invariably underestimate the scale of the outcome, the victory. Why?
Right. Well, 2 reasons. Pollsters tend to try and play safe. For a pollster, it's more important to be remembered that you got the winner right, rather than they got the number of seats right. So they'll say so-and-so is the largest party, but they'll give a little bit of a 1 standard deviation down and say they'll get so much, 250 seats and above, even if their poll is showing 280 or 290. Because if 250, that's the largest party, they say, see, we got the largest party right. If you get the largest party wrong, it's very tough to live that down for pollsters. So one, they played safe, and plus there is a worry, and particularly in this election, of respondents to polling questions also playing it safe. they kind of tend to say ruling party. You know, they don't know who you are, which post he comes from, some town. He looks like he could be a political worker. You never know. So they don't have time to check you out. So they just say,
yeah, you talk about it.
There's an exaggeration, which is the toughest thing for pollster to assess. Yeah. How much is the fear factor among respondents? And that's a big worry this time. Well, I don't, at the moment it's not. People say, what we have done also is said, who did you vote for last time? And then you see whether he's exaggerating last time also and you adjust for that. But that doesn't work because people tend to say they voted for the winner last time. So there's a huge, all over the world by the way, and there's a huge exaggeration about who they voted for last time. So you can't adjust with that. So I don't believe at the moment we have any techniques for adjusting for this fear factor. However, and what we're working on now is artificial intelligence and deep learning to try and account for this, because it's an area that is very complicated to work to understand.
You want to probe on that?
You spoke about the quantitative and the qualitative aspect of opinion polling. Now, there are elections and there are opinion polls. Now, opinion polls are to some extent useful because they break down the mandate in some sense.
Yes.
And we know who is a winner in elections.
Right.
But if we want to know how certain categories of people voted in which for which
Yes,
party, what
yes,
are the
yes.
motivations and so on, opinion polls help us.
Right.
But at the same time, there has been an explosion of opinion polls and they have become an end in themselves
Yeah.
before the elections. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that what opinion polls do, which is tough again for us journalists to do, is say this caste voted this way, men voted this way, women, younger, etc. This is all quantitative information. And from that, a journalist can go into the field and build a story and understand it, but they have some quantitative basis. But opinion polls should not go any further than the numbers. And they try and do that, and I think that's a mistake. And while journalists tell the real motivations of an electorate, which pollsters cannot do. So there's a big difference. There's almost a Chinese wall there should be, although we're always crossing it.
Now, Prannoy, on one of the most interesting findings in your book relating to landslides, or so-called landslides. So, what makes for landslides at the all India level and at the state level?
Well, what happens is that we don't have a national election anymore. Maybe in the first 25, 30 years of post-independence, since 52 first elections, there were national elections because we had just got independence and people were naive and hopeful and trusted their politicians. Now they don't anymore. So you have state-wise, a combination of state-wise elections. So this is not a Lok Sabha election, it's a federation of state elections. So in a Lok Sabha election, each state votes differently, and what happens is the final figures in the Lok Sabha is a combination of landslides different ways that counteract each other. So it will be a landslide one way in Tamil Nadu, another way in Bengal, another way in Maharashtra, another way in Madhya Pradesh, but 77% of all elections at the state level for Lok Sabha, 77% are landslides. So when we are...
Tamil Nadu is a clear case.
Tamil Nadu is 94%, it's top of the list. If you rank all the states by which has the largest number of landslides, Tamil Nadu is 94% of the time. Only one election it didn't have a landslide, I think that was 1980. But otherwise it's always one way, huge victories. So landslides happen because, again, because of our first past the post system, where a small change in votes and a divided opposition gives a huge number of seats. A combination of first past the post and a fragmented opposition gives you landslides.
Now in this connection, there's a lot of talk in the media, news media, about narratives and controlling, so-and-so controls the narrative, say BJP on populist nationalism or whatever it can be called,
right.
Congress on something else in the past.
Right.
Does that make any sense? Does a narrative work across the place? Or is it's a myth?
It is a bit of a myth. It works in, for example, we've just been in Andhra Pradesh. It's a totally different issue. You don't even hear the BJP, you don't hear of Mr. Modi, you don't hear of any as you say, nationalism or majoritarianism narrative there at all. I mean, it's just completely irrelevant. But in some states, like say UP, it does matter. But again, I think as journalists, we tend to overemphasize that, because really, over time, what we found is that voters vote based on their life conditions. If they, I mean, we went to a village and they said, I'm going to vote against this government, this is in UP, because they haven't fixed this bridge in my village, which is broken for 5 years and nothing's being done. That affects him more than Pulwama. I mean, he'll mention Pulwama, but in his rank order, has his MP or MLA made a difference to his life and his village?
Yes.
That's what he wants.
Sir,
Sorry.
Yeah.
so what you said is very much true in terms of, if you look at how the Indian polity has exploded into including more parties, and regional parties, and the federalization factor
Yes.
setting up in 1977. Since 2014, we have seen a government that's always been in campaign mode.
Right.
First of all, I want to ask you, is this new? Has there been ever a government that has been forever seemed to be electioneering in one sense? And has that variable factored into this election, in the sense that maybe in Andhra Pradesh it won't matter, but North, Central and Western India, has this mattered? Has this narrative setting become a factor because this government has been in campaign mode?
It does matter a lot. And this government, or the BJP party, is extremely efficient in booth management and turnout management. Now, turnout management globally is being seen as the new way to win in elections. Well, it's not new, but much more focus on how to ensure turnout in your favor. And the BJP is superb at that, in the sense that they have Panna Pramukhs, they have booth prabharis, they have a system. And while say the left parties also have a good management system, but the left parties haven't converted that into social media. What the BJP does, it has a management system, it has social media apps, so the top leader can get to the Panna Pramukh with a message within 10 seconds and everybody gets it. So all that translates into good management of turnout. Now, turnout management can really affect your winning or losing elections. We have seen that the lower the turnout tends to help cadre-based parties like the BJP. So, because they make sure their voters turn out, while non-cadre-based parties just hope that voluntarily people will come. So, if there's lower turnout, the committed voter has a higher proportion and the BJP does better. So, there is a worry, and I'm not saying this is going to happen this time, but in all turnout management around the world, people spread rumors, don't come today, don't go vote, there's going to be danger, there's going to be violence. So then certain of the kind of voters that don't vote for you don't turn out. There's also in America, many books have been written about how voter suppression by ensuring certain categories of voters, like black voters, cannot be registered or do not register. They make it so complicated for them that large numbers are not registered and therefore can't vote. We have a similar problem.
In India, right-wing parties create some fear so that women don't turn out.
Yes, you know, there could be violence on that day, and but I must say that women's turnout has just been wonderful in India. It's gone.
We'll come to that.
Okay, we'll come to that. Yeah, but you're right, they do that.
Huge part of the book. Very important part of the book. Now, a long time ago, Lahiri and Roy developed this index of opposition unity.
Yes,
which was a real contribution, I think an original contribution to this field. Can you tell us briefly the significance of this and how you came upon it? Of course, if you read the book, it goes back to Butler, his work, how they were inspired by it, his talk about uniform swings, but they don't apply for all India, stayed in India and so on. But the index of opposition unity is is a big determinant.
Big determinant. I think we underestimate it. We worked, everything we learned originally from Butler. He was the originator of the uniform swing. but he worked in a two-party system. So when he came to India, we found that it doesn't quite apply here because we have so many parties. So we had to work out an equation which actually is a definition of what determines a change in margin. Margin of victory is what you eventually want to focus on. So change in votes and a change in opposition unity, the index of opposition unity. If there's a perfect two-party system, the index of opposition unity is 100 out of 100. The more fragmented it goes down to 70, 60, 50. And that as much determines the margin of victory as swings. So people often say, is this a Modi wave? Or was 2014 a Modi wave? We say that's a misnomer because he won with 31% of the vote. He won because of a divided opposition. So one should, in India, unlike in the West where you say is there a wave or not, we should say how important is the divided opposition this time?
Yes.
For example, Congress fighting separately in UP. How important? That's probably more important than waves and swings. So India is different in the sense that the index of opposition unity is not 100 here like in a two-party system, it's 60 or 50 or 70.
So how good is the index of opposition unity? Or how bad is it from the standpoint of the BJP? Well, I suppose that's the wrong question because nationally there's no one. Yeah,
it'll be state-wise, yeah, and it is a crucial question. The actual number can only be again assessed by opinion polls, which we assess the index of opposition unity. For example, are Yadavs going to vote with the Dalits together? And mostly we found in our surveys that yes, they are voting together. Votes, when two parties get in formal alliance, their votes add together. It's not only additive, they get a boost also because the voter sees, wow, this is a winning combination, it's got momentum. So if it's 20% and 20%, it will be 40 plus another 5. Actually, it's plus an average of another 8%. So 48, you get an 8% on average momentum vote. So in certain...
Do you have data on vote transfer? Because people say, oh, this party will transfer, the other will not.
These are the kind of things which journalists should stay away from because it's conventional wisdom and it's just not true. Yeah. And it's measurable. And we have found that vote transfer is almost 100%.
Really?
Almost 100% plus a boost. They get additional, because of the momentum. So vote transfer is, yes, exactly that most journalists say, oh, the others will not vote for Mayawati, but Mayawati's voters will vote. That's just not true. The others are voting for Mayawati. And we say, well, Muslims votes are tactical. Unfortunately, that's not true. It does split. And it's like splitting 80-20 in UP at the moment, 80% to SP-BSP and 20% to Congress. But people say, no, they'll all vote 100-0. In fact, nothing in elections quantitatively is 100-0. You don't have blocks. Brahmins don't vote 100% for BJP, they'll vote about 65%. Yadavs are not 100% for SP, it'll be about 80%. So journalists tend to go, when they go into quantitative, we go a little bit extreme. Block will vote. It's not complete blocks.
So, whatever the difficulty in measuring, in assessing this, clearly the index is higher this time than in 2014.
Yes, much higher, much higher. It's a huge difference. In UP, it's going to make a huge difference. So that's the question to be asking. How much difference is the index of opposition unity going to make rather than is there a wave again? Because the impact of that is much more. And in UP, it could be a difference of even if the vote level is at 2014 level, just the combination of these two, the BJP can go from 73 down to half that or even less. And if the Congress had joined and had been a three-way, main three-way, of course there are other smaller parties, it would have gone down from 73 to 20. The fact that the Congress, which is only 6% of the vote in UP, is fighting separately, that 6% will give the BJP an extra 14 seats, which is like 14 out of 80 is like 20%. So small 6% vote matters. And I must say the BJP is much smarter at understanding the importance of even the 4% or 5% in getting extra seats. So they are much better at negotiating, they're much better at compromising. They give seats to get an extra 5% because those 5% give you an extra 10% of seats. So the Congress doesn't.
In 2004, Congress was brilliant in this. Brought in various forces, big as well as small, and had enough. That was
Except in UP, they couldn't come together with SP and BSP. And this time, I think they have misread the situation and haven't understood that they could get more if they compromise a little bit.
Okay, let's UP we dealt with. That's
Yeah.
a major case. Let's look at a couple of other states. The index, how the index could be, although we don't have the answers yet.
Right.
Maharashtra.
Maharashtra, it's again going to be pretty close to a two-way fight. It's going to be index out of 100 will be, again a poll will show this, but early indications is going to be above 80. I mean, it's interesting, for example, another state, Kerala.
Yes.
There are so many parties, but the index of opposition unity is about the highest in the country because they get together and they form alliances and they understand the importance of alliances in winning elections here.
Kerala is ahead of the rest in terms of
Index of
understanding
opposition.
elections.
Yeah, Kerala is way ahead of the rest in understanding. To do an opinion poll in Kerala is the most wonderful exercise and also the most time consuming because when we do the pre-poll pilots to check whether the questions are right and all. So we go to Kerala and you ask a question, he said, no, you're asking it wrong. And he'll give you a 20-minute lecture on what is the right way to ask. So each question you get a 20. So every interview lasts about 1.5 hours, while everywhere else in the world they want you, in the country they want you out of there. Here they want a discussion. Political awareness is superb. Absolutely, Kerala is. I would say the biggest learning experience in meeting and interviewing voters is in Kerala. You learn a lot while doing pilot surveys.
Karnataka, how does it index of
It
opposition?
will make a huge difference. A huge difference.
Congress and JDS.
Congress and JDS will make a huge difference. Votes will be additive. Unfortunately, the Congress and JDS, their record since they won the assembly elections, they've been a bit, they've been arguing and not shown a united front, which will chip away at their popularity. But
Big advantage.
it'll be a big difference, yes, big difference in Karnataka.
But you also say in your book that apart from index of opposition unity, you also look at swings and you
Yes.
try to find out how the swings matter in homogeneous assembly constitution, which I
Right.
assume you mean regions.
Right,
So in
exactly.
Karnataka, for example, the JDS and Congress both are relatively much strong in the south, and the JDS is not much of a factor in the north.
Right.
So thus these
Very
factors
correct.
also
Yeah, in the south, the Vocaligas, where the JDS is strong, so that combination is hugely important in the south. But even in the north, even I just keep saying that even if you've got 7%, it makes a big difference because most seats are won with margins of 3, 4, 5%. So if you add another 7, you'll get a whole lot of more seats. But you're right, the impact of the alliance in Karnataka will be more in the south because of the north-south divide in terms of Vocaligas and Lingayats.
Now a very important part of the book, the women voters. The findings are, I think, extremely significant, and I think they have to read this book because it's a very heartening sign in some respects, but disheartening when you talk about 21 million missing women voters. It came down from 25 million in
Right.
2014.
Yes.
But first, the positive thing.
Right.
You are predicting in the book that in this election, women voters may actually outnumber male voters at the All India level in the Lok Sabha.
Yes, out participate in the sense that the turnout figure will be higher, but because of the missing numbers, it may not be in absolute terms, they may be less. But in terms of their percentage turnout, it could be higher, and it's not a very difficult thing to forecast because in state assembly elections, women's turnout is now higher than men already. This time, if the trend continues, which there's no reason it should
The
not,
rate of increase is dramatically.
dramatically different. Women are coming out to vote more than men in every state, and more so in the south of India, of course, where the women are much more proactive. You talk to them, they, like, you know, you walk around a village in the south, I'm telling you, right across the south, a woman inside a house will see you and she'll come out and say what questions you're asking. In UP, they'll be standing at the door and they'll rush inside. They don't want to interact. Women are a little more, although that's changing in UP also. But in the south, and then the husband also comes and then we ask, do you vote independently or do you listen to what he said? And she'll say, listen to him? Who's he? And he'll quietly, sometimes we ask him, do you listen to her? which they don't do either. Men and women make up their own mind.
Is there a correlation between turnout for women and representation in candidacy? More women candidates in the picture? Is there a correlation?
Unfortunately, so far there has not been. The percentage of women candidates that parties have nominated has been appallingly low. Nowhere near the 50% that they deserve. But because of this increasing turnout of women overtaking men, now the policies of parties are becoming women focused. Like the actually very clever and effective policy of the gas cylinders. It really worked well, and that was just for women. Unfortunately, that has lost a lot of its steam because now they have to pay for the second cylinder. So we met many women where the cylinder is just lying there, they got it free, and they're using the stove again because they can't afford the 800 rupees for replacing that cylinder. Some are using it for fast cooking. In the morning they quickly use a little bit of the cylinder, and the evening when they have a little bit of time they use the gas stove because stoves are cheaper now that they have to buy. So that's just one area where parties are focusing on women. But if you look at the manifestos and look at what they do at election time, you see a lot of leaders saying, will all the women come to the front? Please come to the front. They're talking to women because women now matter much more than ever before. And that's a heartening sign.
And rural women doing better than urban women.
Literally 5% higher turnout, which is a lot. Village women turnout is the highest of any category in this country, and it's growing the fastest. And it used to be more than 20% behind men. Now rural women voters turn out at a higher percentage than urban in towns, and certainly above men as well. But it is sad. Again, the qualitative side, you see these beautiful long queues of women, and they're all waiting to vote, and then like 2 or 3 go in together, friends, they come out and one will say, I couldn't vote. I say, why not? Because my name was not on the electoral rolls. And it's just 21 million women like that, which is over 35,000 women per constituency are over 18, are Indian and cannot vote. And in the northern states it's much worse. In the south, women's registration is nearly 100%. Wonderful. And turnout is highest. In the north, women's registration on electoral rolls is appalling. In UP, not only are the largest number, it's a big state, but the highest percentage of women not registered is in UP. And the amount of women missing in UP works out an average of 85,000 women missing in every constituency. Now 85,000 margins of victory are much lower than that. So it is just a tragedy. And
you talk about 3 states, UP, Maharashtra and Rajasthan.
Yes.
Being particularly bad.
Particularly bad.
In the book.
Yes. Now what we have, we've found this, and by the way, a lot of people have written on this before, of various aspects of missing women, and not enough work has been, I think there's a PhD waiting to be done on why are they missing.
Yeah.
And what categories, because the sense we got, just again casual empiricism in surveys, is the poorest that are not there, the Dalits, the scheduled castes, and the Muslim voters, women are not registered. So there is not only a 21 million missing, but a bias in the missing. So why this is happening is our next step on what we were going to see. Why should this 21 million be missing? And we had hoped to go to the Supreme Court to say, In this one election, we cannot accept this. Please ask the Election Commission that any woman who comes has got an ID that shows she lives in that area and is above 18, let her vote. Then we found that, surprisingly, the right to vote is not a fundamental right in India. It's a statutory right.
Yes.
By the way, nota is a fundamental right.
Oh.
But right to vote is a statutory right. So you can only go to the Supreme Court with an SLP, given the time constraint, if it's a fundamental right.
You know, in the first, when they prepared the electoral rolls first time, this comes out in other literature, a number of women left out because they wouldn't reveal their names.
Oh, all right.
Wife of so and so.
Right,
And, I think the first election commissioner looked at them and they had to decide leave them out. So a number of women were missing, but this is an interesting
Yeah.
So there's a
historical
correlation between women
detail.
empowerment and registration. So where they are more empowered, maybe in
Maybe that's right, yeah. Women in power. But then a lot of work needs to be done on why this is happening. I mean, the Election Commission has got a lot of policy, a lot of schemes to try and get women involved. And they say, look, it's not our fault because there are communities that don't want their women photographed, there are communities who won't want the age of their women to be revealed. But I don't think enough work has been done, because if it's a biased sample that is being, like only scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and Muslims women are not being registered, it is a huge impact on an election.
Now about, you also say that, the BJP scores more heavily among men than women, and Congress does better.
Right.
Now, at this state level, we've observed, I think based on data from exit polls or post
Right.
polls,
Yes.
post surveys, that the AIDMK under MG Ramachandran and Jayalalitha have been doing distinctly better among women than
Absolutely,
among men.
yes, yes.
Probably
We've,
men voted. DMK could not be defeated. But
Yes.
at the national level, this holds.
uh,
You mentioned it in the
yes, generally the BJP has a higher support amongst men than amongst women, traditionally over the years. They are a fairly male-dominated party. The RSS has no women, but I think they're trying to change that. But at the moment, yes, they do much better amongst men. So the rising women turnout is a bit of a worry for the BJP. Although again, like the LPG gas cylinder and other policies directed at women, they're trying to change that.
Now, one of the features of the book, the verdict, is your assessment, highly positive assessment of the Indian voter, independent-minded,
Yeah.
looks at what how these programs translates at his or her level,
Right.
their
Yeah.
living conditions, they're
Right.
making that the most important issue.
Yes, yes,
Throwing people out if they don't perform.
yes,
Then the Election Commission itself,
yes.
which is must be one of the wonders of the world,
It must be, it really is a small organization that is just brilliant.
with whatever faults. And
Yes.
I will come to that later, the financial
Yes, yes.
the role of money. And then the EVMs. Now let's take EVMs first.
Right.
You looked into it pretty thoroughly.
We have followed and tested and analyzed since 1977. The first EVMs were being used, and then in 1983, actually in Kerala in 1982, and then 1983 in Karnataka and Andhra, they used it, and we saw it, and then we've seen it in the Election Commission offices. We've pressed it, we've checked it, we've looked at whether it works or not. The main thing about them is they cannot be tampered with because they have no connectivity with the outside world. There's no Bluetooth, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no internet connection. It's just a machine that's recording rather than a piece of paper, ballot paper. And it is a suspicion of any technology that one feels, oh, something is wrong. And only those who lose, say, the EVM, when they lose, it's the EVM was tampered with. When they win, it's fine. So far, I would say there have been a lot of hackers and globally saying these can be tampered with, and every time they try and demonstrate, it's a complete flop. They cannot prove that these can be tampered with. Now, till somebody proves it, I think, and I mean, it's very unlikely because so many people have tried. At the moment, I personally, and I think we all should have faith that they record it properly. And the VVPAT, which is the piece of paper that follows it, is just to assuage doubts. It's exactly the same thing. It's like an analog version of a digital recording. But we are all analog minds, I think.
Yes.
And we are suspicious of anything digital, although digital is probably more accurate.
The Election Commission, I think, has done pretty well in inviting everybody to come, anyone to come and test it in situ.
Yes.
Not take it out to their homes or offices.
No. Yes.
So far, it's stood up.
Absolutely. They've done a lot.
I remember Julian Assange telling me that, even your phone, the best way, if you're leaking things, the best way to get leaked documents is hand it over personally.
Right.
So completely standalone.
Right.
No internet, no mobile. Don't keep your mobile phone nearby.
Yes.
So that's the say. They're working on all kinds of things to receive.
But this is like a giant calculator. There's not even an operating system. It's just
Quite right. It's just a calculator. That's a perfect way to describe it. And you say, oh, calculator saying 3 + 3 = 6, something's wrong. Pata nahi, let's get a printout.
So this VVPAT is really a bit of a luxury.
It is a very expensive luxury to assuage.
It costs much more than the
machine itself.
electronic
Yes.
documents.
Yeah.
The Election Commission.
And I hate to say it, lots of trees are being cut because of the paper being used. A million polling booths.
So this fight from this 5 per assembly constituency, do you think that's reasonable?
I don't think you need it at all, but it's a question of psychological and convincing people that it will be, that it is a fair system. An analog version of a digital printout.
So now the role of money in elections. This is an area where the Election Commission has been, I suppose it's unfair to blame them, but they are completely helpless because there is political finance which operates outside the system of electoral funding. They already have all these resources.
Right.
Political parties collect money in various ways, and then now you have new innovative ways, less transparent of like electoral bonds and so on, which make an ass of the law. The law is truly an ass, the election law, when it comes to spending limits and and everybody knows. In Tamil Nadu, anecdotal, we hear major party minimum expenditure for a Lok Sabha seat constituency is 30 crores. In some cases they'll say 50 crores.
Yes.
But
Karnataka too.
that's the
Yes.
kind of number. And
Again, anecdotal.
so, what do we do about it? Is that your next book?
Yeah, we actually going to make this into a more academic piece, which nobody will read, of course. This we try to get, we don't have tables with lots of columns, and we try to bring down to one figure and the key figure. Now we just want to do, there are certain areas like money, which we touched on, and we got a lot of feedback from the field, but still too early to actually come to a proper conclusion. But we know that in America, a lot of research has been done where money plays a huge role in the re-election of senators and governors. There the re-election rate is about 90%, pro-incumbency. They never heard of, money affects pro-incumbency there. So here as well, as you said, the kind of numbers involved. In addition to that, there's the parties, so advertisements on television, on the road, quiet handouts, unfortunately probably playing a bigger role. Although I hate to say it, and I only have anecdotal evidence for this as well, the Indian voter is a little smarter than the American voter. They take money from both sides and vote the way they want, because they know that the final vote is secret. They have great faith in that nobody will find out how they voted eventually.
You mentioned incumbency, and in the book you say, quoting Ruchir Sharma, that in the US, this thing anti-incumbency, nobody
They don't know what it is.
What they mean.
Yes.
But in your book, you have a sort of historical discussion on 3 periods. The first period is pro-incumbency.
Yes.
The period lasting from 1952 to 77.
Right.
Then you have a period of distinct anti-incumbency,
Yes.
77 to 2004?
2002, yeah, 25 years, yeah.
2002. And then 50-50.
50-50 is the
That's
current
fine.
stage we are in.
Uh,
It's just the data, because in the first 25 years, over 80% of governments were voted back. So it was pro-incumbency. In the next 25 years, when they found that the politicians had failed them, they just threw out everybody, good or bad, and over 70% of governments were thrown out, while earlier 80% used to be thrown back as a complete reversal. And since 2002, 50-50. Half the governments are thrown out, half are come back. And the governments that are voted back tend to be governments that have worked on the ground and are doers. It's clear now that the voters are not taken up by pure oratory and great speeches, because the most successful politicians, and Naveen Patnaik, a doer, may not be not known for his oratory. Even Raman Singh, not known for his oratory. Shivraj Chauhan, Manik Sarkar, earlier, he 4 times, yeah. Yes. Even Sheila Dikshit,
Yes.
you know, a doer, did a lot for Delhi, not a great orator, back 3 times. So they want things done on the ground. And your oratory can help, but if you haven't done it on the ground, you will not be voted back.
Now on corruption, you have some. Let's look at issues. Usually livelihood issues come right up at the top. They're the most important.
Well, you know, it's a key thing that an issue, to be an election issue, has to fulfill 2 criteria. One, it has to be important in my life. Like corruption is important to most people. You go to a police station, there's corruption. I have found, all of us have found, that you go to widows, go to a bank to collect their 1,000 rupee pension every month. The bank manager charges her 500 to give her that 1,000. He says, oh, big problem, no, computer mein kuch. So a bank manager sees a poor widowed woman and he still takes 500 rupees. I mean, it's just awful. And it's all computerized, so it's nothing to do. It's not, you know, it does, corruption beats computers. So corruption is always very high, but the second criteria, one party must be seen to be better at solving it than the other. And so not only important to you, one, it must be clear distinction in the parties for it to become an election issue. And corruption, for example, very important, but they say all parties are corrupt. I think the Aam Aadmi Party once swept in Delhi, unprecedented sweep, because that's the one distinction they did have at the time, was that they were not a corrupt party, while all the others were seen as corrupt, apart from other issues. But there are many issues that they say, oh, both parties are the same, oh yeah, one party will be better. Then that becomes an election issue.
VP Singh in the Hindi areas.
Yes, yes, he was considered to be non-corrupt, yes, made a big difference. I think, sorry, last thing that Chu Ramaswamy said, that how can corruption be an issue when one side is a pickpocket and the other side is a thief? Chu Ramaswamy was great, yeah.
So one thing in the book that you also mentioned is that opinion pollsters generally get the winner right, if not the extent of the win or extent of the victory or seat shares and so on.
Yeah.
But one exception was the 2004 election.
Yes.
Where you actually exclude that in your analysis in most of the tables.
Yeah.
What do you think went wrong then, and have pollsters adjusted for those mistakes?
You know, people are not 100% sure why it went wrong, but every poll got it wrong in 2004. One of the reasons is, and many pollsters are worried about it this time as well, is the play safe factor among voters when they are responding to questions. They tend to say the ruling party, and like if you had done it immediately after the emergency, who would have said, you know, I'm not voting for Indira Gandhi? You would have said Indira Gandhi, play safe, because there was a feeling of fear a little bit. Again, that is, you know, out of 100 voters, 5 may do that, but 5% is huge. So if the fear factor is 2%, 5% or 7%, changes the forecast completely. So that's a worry in every election, and some elections a little more. And we have found that in the villages and even the small towns in the north, there is a lot of tension today. It's not like it was 5 years ago, 20 years ago. There's a lot of tension between castes and religions. And whether in this atmosphere there's going to be an additional fear factor, pollsters are going to find it very difficult to assess that, and it's a big worry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ram. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.